Here's your host and broker-owner of the Dan Gemus Real Estate Team, Dan Gemus.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good one. It was nice and foggy for the drive in this morning, so just be careful out in the county. We have an exciting show today. I have with me in studio Chris Gibb, the owner of Gibb Insurance Brokerage. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Very good, Dan. Very good. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thanks for getting up this early in the morning and joining me in studio.
Yes.
Always a bit of a challenge for some folks. Oh boy. We also have, we'll talk insurance all hour this hour, but we're still going to have our typical mortgage weekly tip and our weekly home staging tip as well. So we'll get to those, but we've got Chris stuck in the studio with me all hour. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So, house insurance. It's something that everyone needs. If you have a house, you need it.
It's one of those necessary evils, I guess we'll say.
But for someone who's had an issue with some water in his basement, who had to use insurance, it's a good thing I had it. You know, and we get a lot of that these days, don't we? We're getting more and more.
We do. Water has become the new number one issue for insurance companies in North America.
I believe that completely. Have you seen any big changes in the insurance industry in the last few years? Are things morphing at all, or?
I guess it's an industry that's constantly morphing. It's constantly changing. I don't think the general public understands how competitive this business is.
Yeah.
And each insurance company is trying to build a better mousetrap, deliver a better product at a better price. So, again, it would almost be impossible. But one of the biggest things right now is water damage. That's the bane of my existence.
The bane of my existence. And your office is in Amherstburg, so it really is the bane of your existence.
Yes. We've had quite a few catastrophic sewer backup incidents over the last few years.
Hopefully it's done. So you mentioned, a better trap. The insurance companies are trying different things. What kind of things do you find them trying to do to kind of attract more attention?
Well, I guess one of the biggest things with house insurance that's come around in the last few years is what they call a individualized rating.
Okay.
Where rather than just take the age of the house, the neighborhood, and come up with a price, they're really trying to dial it in to look at each individual factor and get you a rate that's individual to you.
Okay.
Most people don't know this, but your credit score can affect the cost of your insurance, your postal code. And we're not just saying, if you live on the east side of Windsor, or if you live in Tecumseh, or if you live in Amherstburg.
Yeah.
The actual 6-digit postal code. So if you live on one side of the street and you move to the other side, your price could change.
What's affecting it? What are they?
It's statistics.
History?
Statistics. It's total statistics.
Okay.
If your neighbors have a lot of claims, then it's more likely you may have a lot of claims. Credit scoring. Credit scoring is a big one.
Yeah.
No one likes to talk about it, but it is the single best indicator of how profitable you'll be as a customer.
Really?
Yeah. There's no better indicator for our industry.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that would shock most people.
It really would. I can't speak for the insurance companies. I'm sure they would like to use it for auto insurance pricing also, but they're not allowed to. But for home insurance, it gives us a great indication. If you pay your phone bill on time, you're most likely to change your roof when it needs to be changed.
Wow,
you're more likely, if you make sure your credit cards are paid on time, you probably make sure your doors are locked.
You know what? You say that, and it makes sense.
It does.
It makes sense.
Does.
Scary, but it makes sense. They got to make their money, I guess, right?
That's right.
So you're, Gibb Insurance Brokers is a brokerage, so you have access to a bunch of different insurance companies, correct?
Yes.
So explain to us the difference between a broker and going to a company that's just the single company.
Okay. Basically, in the insurance industry, in the house insurance and auto insurance, you have what we call captive agencies and insurance brokers. So a captive agency would be your Allstates, your State Farms, your Cooperators, your 1-800 numbers like RBC. Those people represent one company, and they only have one product they can sell you. Where as an insurance broker, I'm just like yourself, Dan, as a real estate broker.
Yeah.
you're an independent business person,
Yep.
and I have access to 12 to 15 different companies that, as a broker, I can shop the market for someone.
Okay.
And it's less of a sales job and more of a job where you're finding the right product for the individual.
Yeah. Okay. And again, that's a perfect example. Chris just did the insurance on our new building. Everyone's heard about now. Yeah, everyone's heard about it. Keep you reminded by people. You're the guy on the front page. Yes, I am. I'm sorry about that. And in that process, again, you shopped our rate around, and like you said, not only do you care about the best price, but some companies are going to offer better terms, et cetera, et cetera. Correct?
Exactly. Some companies may offer different coverages that you require where others won't. The building you bought is an older building.
Yeah.
Some companies don't have an appetite for that where others do.
It's not that old.
Well,
131 years old.
It's classic. It'll be a classic. It'll be lots of fun for you.
What am I getting myself into? Oh, boy.
My father always said, never let fear and common sense hold you back.
Well, there you go. I speak those words. Okay, so again, as a broker, I've had brokers in the past where once they did my policy, I needed a change made. I didn't go to them anymore. I dealt with the 1-800 number, which is never fun.
Yep.
In your case, do you tend to deal with everyone from moving forward once you have a policy?
When you deal with our office, and for most insurance brokers, you're going to deal with a person.
Okay.
When you call our office because you need to
Yes.
You want to add coverage for your ring, or you buy a boat, you're going to talk to a person.
Yeah,
It's not a one.
office.
It's
It's
not a push one, push two.
Yeah.
You might not always get me. because I'm a very busy,
Well, it's like
popular
my
guy.
office. Yep.
But my team, Jody and Emily, are there. Most of the time I joke you're better to talk to them because they have less things on their plate, and they're smarter than I am and better looking than I am. But you're going to get someone to deal with. And I say this as a joke, but I think it holds true. Insurance is a very complicated product.
Yes.
And if you have an issue, you want to know who you're yelling at. And that's, you want someone who, someone that is not hiding up in Toronto behind a 1-800 number. I live with the people that I insure. So I have to make sure I'm doing things the right way.
Yes. Would you make your bed, please? Okay, so that's a great start to the show, Chris. When we get back, we're going to take a quick break here. When we get back, I want to go through the process of getting a quote, that kind of thing. Later on in the show, I want to talk about some claims issues. What kind of products are our insurance companies not liking right now? Kitech plumbing, knob and tube wiring, that kind of thing, which is huge from our end in the real estate world. And so let's stay tuned right here to the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show. When we come back, we have lots more with Chris Gibb of Gibb Insurance Brokers. Welcome back to the show. We're talking insurance today. I have Chris Gibb of Gibb Insurance Brokers with me in studio. And if anybody does have questions, we will take them on the air. 519-792-2559. That's 519-792-CKLW. Chris, let's talk about the process of getting insurance. So somebody, one of our clients is buying a home. They need to get a quote. What do they do?
It's really these days, it's just as easy as calling the office. And we start the process. We know what questions to ask.
Yes.
So, we do this every day. So it's very simple. You call in, takes maybe 5 or 10 minutes to ask all the questions that we need.
Yeah.
And then, we start the process from there of shopping it around.
Okay.
Everyone's different. No two customers are the same. No two clients are the same. So from those questions, it can lead into, what issues do we need to be aware of? What things can go wrong?
Is there a specific set of questions that someone can expect to be asked?
It really depends on their situation. Obviously, we need the address of the property, the age of the home leads into a lot more questions. Have you had insurance before? Mm-hmm. That's another thing. Sometimes first-time home buyers can have a little bit of a challenge finding in-house insurance. So, have you had claims? All those things kind of help us. We gather that information, and then we can find the product that fits the individual.
So a lot of this can be done by phone?
A lot of it can be
email?
done by phone. I really think it's important to actually sit and go over the product once we present it, because again, the big print gives, but the small print takes away. So to get a sense of what the person needs, if you have a face-to-face conversation, you find out that somebody is into triathlon and they've got a $15,000 triathlon bike. Well, most home insurance policies won't cover that much. Huh. So it's when you get to have that conversation, you start to discover the different needs and wants of different individuals. But it all starts with a quick phone call.
I don't exercise, so I'm okay. I shouldn't.
Well, you're getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning on a long weekend to be at the radio station.
Here I am.
You don't have much time.
So from your world, you get all the information you need from somebody. What happens behind the scenes from there?
Behind the scenes, it's, we take the information, we put it into our programs, our quoting software, and then we will start to get back quotes from the various insurance companies. Mm-hmm. And then, from there, it's really it's a price and service sort of decision that we'll recommend to someone what we think will be their best bet. Again, as an independent broker, to me, I get paid the same commission from all the companies I represent. So it doesn't really, I don't want to say it doesn't matter to me, but it's not an important decision to me what company you deal with. The important decision is if I keep you happy, that keeps bread on my table. So I'm actually less of a salesperson and more of a problem solver.
Right, which is a great way of putting it. Is there typical reasons why you would not recommend someone work with a specific company? I know obviously it depends on their situation, but give me some examples of why you would think someone should go with one company over another. A lot of times it has to do with the business appetite of the company. There are some companies out there that really only want to insure homes that are less than a certain age, or other companies that don't really like older homes, or some companies might have issues with sewer backup coverage in a specific region. So we know what these companies are looking for, and there's really no sense jamming a square peg in a round hole. No. We want to make sure that we take you and your home and put it with a company that you mesh well together. So there's no sense, if you've got a 50-year-old home and we've got a company that really doesn't enjoy 50-year-old homes, they want to stick to the 25 and less, well, there's no sense forcing you with that company. No, of course not. Every policy has a deductible.
Yes.
Tell us quickly, about 30 seconds.
All right.
How a deductible would work.
Okay. The deductible is the portion of the claim that you're responsible for as the homeowner. So if you have a $500 deductible, you're responsible for the first $500 of the claim. Yeah. The higher the deductible, generally the lower the cost, because you're responsible for more of the claim.
Yeah. How high do they go? How high can they?
I've seen people with $5,000 deductibles. It just depends on the individual. If if you're someone who really wants to take care of your own smaller claims, take a higher deductible. If you're somebody who, you don't want to have to come out with that much money if you have a claim, take a lower deductible, but you're going to be paying more every year or every month for that.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, lots more to come. Keep it tuned right here. Right now, it is time for our weekly mortgage tip with Kyle Lucier, the mortgage broker at RBC. Hey, Kyle, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thanks. So this week's tip of the week is...
Purchase plus improvements.
Purchase plus improvements. So anyone who's looking to buy a property that needs some work.
Correct.
For example, a roof, or it has to add value to the home, correct?
So more minor things, no structural changes normally. So you're looking at things like AC, furnace. Some people are looking at roof, flooring, kitchens, bathrooms, different renovations that aren't necessarily major, but need to be done.
So are there any general guidelines to a mortgage plus improvements?
So the main thing is you can't go over 10% of the purchase price.
Okay.
And for RBC, we look at a max of up to $20,000. So
Okay.
it's more for those repairs that need to be done more cosmetic, or that you wanted to do right away, but your normal savings didn't allow that.
You're not adding a addition to the house with this money.
No, exactly. Correct. Yeah, it's just for minor things up to 20,000. That kind of brings it into the ballpark of furnace, AC, and different minor changes.
So how does that work? If somebody says, okay, you know what, I want to do some work to this house, what's the process from your standpoint with the mortgage?
So the steps are, we're going to do a normal mortgage application, but the main difference is you're going to have to get quotes up front. So when you get those quotes up front, you're going to go to Home Depot or your contractor and get a quote of what it's going to cost for that AC or that flooring. You're going to give those quotes to me, and I'm going to work that right into the application.
Okay.
And if we have to do an appraisal, we'll still do an upfront, confirming the value, possibly including those renovations.
So then the buyer moves into the property, does the work. Do they have to pay out of pocket for those things at the beginning?
Correct. So most people will use savings, gift, a line of credit or a credit card that's available to help them get to the point of completion. They'll sign off on it with us. They'll also provide receipts for what they spent, including a contractor's signature if needed. And then we'll release the funds after. So a lot of times they'll pay back their credit card or their line of credit, family member that might have helped them out.
How long does it usually take to get the money after the work's complete?
Oh, a day. It's right away.
Very quick.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
right away. Yeah.
You're not waiting for months and months and months.
No.
Fantastic. Anything else you want to mention on this topic?
No, those are the main things. So quotes and receipts after the fact are going to be important. So it's not always easy to get those quotes up front.
Does it matter? Do you have to shop around? Like, will the bank want various quotes, or do they really
Just
not
one.
care? Just
yeah,
one.
so
Okay.
you want one. So you want to be as close as possible to what you're actually going to end up spending, and we're going to come up with an amount. So
Obviously, it's to your benefit to spend as little as possible. so it's
Exactly, and
not-
we're getting the receipts back as well. So we're going to confirm that you actually spent what you intended to. Yeah.
Obviously, the bank wants to protect itself in case it has to sell the house. It needs to know that the value is
Exactly.
there.
And the
right?
work was completed. Yeah.
You got it. Perfect. If someone wants to get a hold of you, Kyle, how do they do so?
Yeah, my cell phone is 519-816-3403, or they can email me at kyle.lucier@rbc.com.
Fantastic. Thanks for the help. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's Kyle Lucier, mortgage agent with RBC. So thanks, Kyle, for those tips. When we come back, lots more with Chris Gibb of Gibb Insurance Brokers. We're going to get into talking about some claim issues, which is always a good time. And I've been through it myself. Okay, lots more to come right here on AM800 with the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show. Welcome back to the show. Chris Gibb from Gibb Insurance Brokers in studio with me. Chris, your office number, 519-736-8228.
That's right.
And you can email Chris at chris@gibbinsurance.ca. Not .com. You'll email some other Gibb guy.
Proud Canadian. It's got to be .ca.
Proud Canadian. There you go. And again, if you have any questions for Chris in studio here today, you can call us live, 519-792-CKLW. That's 519-792-2559. Let's keep on going, Chris. Now, what's next on my list here? What types of things can help someone save money with house insurance?
Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, one of the biggest ones is you really do need to shop around.
Yeah.
These days, I hate to say that that loyalty is not rewarded. Many companies will give you a discount for having been with them for a while, but they can't treat a 25-year customer any different than someone who's been insured with them for 25 days.
Yeah.
Everyone has to be treated the same. So you really do have to. The number one thing is you need to shop around every few years. I think people should see what else is out there. There's always a new company that wants to gain business. There's things. There might be when you're 40, they might have one rate, and when you turn 45, there might be another rate. So it's definitely worthwhile shopping around.
And the process isn't difficult anymore, right? It's, hey, Chris, shop around. What can you find for me?
No,
as opposed to, I think people get complacent, right? It's just, well, it's already there. Let's just whatever. And it got to the point, and when we called you not long ago, it got to the point where we kept getting, every year we're getting a renewal, and it's increasing and increasing and increasing. And I kept saying, this is making no sense. So you're right. You have to shop around.
You do. You need to shop around. And whether you have, a quote unquote good record or
Yeah.
or not so good record, again, it's you need to shop around and look. It only takes, like I say, 15 minutes for us to gather the information, work something out. If if it leads to a worthwhile decision of switching companies, then you do it. It's not that hard.
Why are you giving me that look when you talk about good record, bad record? I told you the lamppost backed up into me.
You know what? Your wife has a very good record,
Yes,
so
she does, yeah.
she saved you a lot of money.
Oh, that's a funny story for another day. Let's talk about replacement costs. That's one of the biggest confusing things about insurance policies. I think everyone's confused. Most of the time, people will call us and say, "Hey, Dan, I think my house is worth $500,000. Oh, really? Unfortunately, it's only worth $300,000. Yeah, but my insurance paper says it's worth $500,000.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Of all the questions I get asked, that is probably the single biggest thing that people have a hard time wrapping their heads around. And I get it. When you get that insurance renewal and you bought your house for $250,000 and they show it as being insured for $400,000,
Yeah.
it really doesn't make sense. But what you have to remember is that number, when you get that insurance paperwork, they are not insuring your house. They're insuring the replacement of your house.
Right.
So in that number, there's 15% for debris removal. God forbid, if your house burns down, they've got to come in and remove the foundation, remove all the debris. Then they have to rebuild it at today's prices, not, when you bought it 10, 15 years ago. When you build a house or you get a house from a builder, that doesn't include the blinds, it doesn't include the light fixtures, all the flooring and things. So this is your house replacing it as it stands. So the two numbers can be different. And the older your home is, the wider spread you're going to have.
No kidding. Like you say, it's if your home is 100 years old, to replace that is...
Well, and that's the issue is you are guaranteed the replacement of your home as close as possible to what it was. So, if you've got an $80,000 home that's 80 years old, it most likely has plaster walls. Well, they have to... Technically, they have to replace that plaster. You might have 8-inch oak baseboards.
Yeah.
You don't have those hollow core doors from Home Depot. You've got solid wood doors. So at the end of the day, that's what they're replacing. They're not replacing, an $80,000 home. They're replacing all the components of the home.
Let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about claims, okay? Because I've been through it. Some good friends of ours, their house did burn down.
Okay.
And then flooded a couple years later.
Wow. They might be calling
They're
in.
doing great today. Yeah, they might be calling. So, we know people who've gone through some devastation with insurance. In our case, it wasn't that serious. It was just a bit of water in the basement, nothing horrible. But regardless, we still have to go through the process, and it's a pain. It really is.
It is. It is.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's. I think what people have to understand is insurance companies aren't out there not to pay claims.
Of course.
I've been in this business for almost 20 years, and almost everyone I've come across in the claims department of various insurance companies, they want to pay out what they're legally obligated to pay out. They want to settle your claim because somewhere someone has a desk full of files, and the sooner they pay yours and close it, the sooner they can move on to the next one. But it is a devastating process. And I think one problem in our industry is we see this every day. So when someone calls in with a flooded basement or a roof that's blown off, they may not get the warm, fuzzy feeling that they need. That's what I find when people call me about a claim, because I tell all my clients, I'm your first phone call.
Yep.
They call, you empathize with them. This is most likely the first time they've been through it.
Yep.
Your home is your castle, your safe place. And when you find 6 inches of water in the basement, it can be devastating. My parents went through it. Their basement flooded twice. So it's there should be a little more compassion, I'd like to see from the industry. But generally, it's an industry where, there are disaster restoration companies that can be at your house within an hour. And most companies, they want to pay the claims fairly equitably and put
move
people
on.
back to where they are.
Yeah. Let's talk about contents. So, in our issue, when our basement had some water issues, we had to deal with some content, lost contents. How does that usually work? That being our first experience, really, they almost take your word for it, which is kind of silly in my opinion. But how else do they do it, really?
Well, really, I mean, it's insurance is a contract of utmost good faith.
Yeah.
The insurance company is going to believe you because they're expecting you to tell the truth.
Yeah.
We all hear the stories about, when your Van Gogh was damaged in the water or your 7 fur coats. But
Chris, shh.
I just want to know why you wear all those fur coats, Dan. It's for most people, the vast majority of people that in this area, it's not a big issue as far as fraud goes. It's pretty easy to tell from looking at a house what they're going to have in it.
Yeah.
If someone tells us that they had, 2 widescreen televisions downstairs, well, this day and age, that's not unheard of. It's most likely that they did have that. Your contents, the first thing you need to do, especially with a sewer backup, is they take the contents out, what's salvageable and what isn't.
Yeah.
A lot of times your disaster restoration companies will come. They have warehouses that, and this is something that's always amazes me. They have warehouses where they can dry it, they can disinfect things, they can dry your pictures, save as many as they can, and then you see what do we need to replace, what can be repaired, what can put the client back to where they were before the claim.
And the first thing we did was we got into the basement. Again, in our case, it was just the carpet was soppy, so we couldn't actually see, water pooling.
Right.
Although it was pooled under the carpet. It was a nice thick carpet. It wasn't that serious for us. But in our case, the adjuster. First thing I did was I took pictures of everything myself.
Excellent idea.
We ended up having to remove all the carpets just because they were going to be wild. It was a bit busier in the area. So we removed everything ourselves, and they actually reimbursed us a little bit of money.
Yes, a lot of companies will reimburse you for your time.
Yeah. And so that I thought that was fair. So the whole process, I think it was definitely a fair process. It was just tedious, and nobody likes to deal with it. Is what it comes down to.
No.
But what do you do? It's especially after big rainfalls or big storms, and it's happening left and right. They're going to be busy. You just got to deal with it. What are some of the common issues we're seeing? For example, and just in insurance in general, Kitech plumbing, knob and tube wiring. Give us some of the more common. I know in my industry, and this is a real estate show, so maybe I should bring it up. But some of the more popular ones are knob and tube wiring. If there's knob and tube wiring, we got a problem.
Well, I think this is one of the, especially for someone who's buying a home or a first-time home buyer, this is one of the areas that your real estate agent can really help you out. If you knob and tube wiring, I don't know if people know what knob and tube wiring is. It's a very old type of wiring that it's not bad wiring, but it can't handle the loads that today's homeowners put on it. Yeah. So most insurance companies, most mainline insurance companies, do not want knob and tube wiring in a home. Generally, they might give you 30 or 60 days from the date you discover it to remove it. But this is a spot where a good real estate agent can make sure that people are aware of that.
No kidding. And again, it's why home inspections are important as well, because they're really going to dig deep in there and have a good look. What else do we have? We have aluminum wiring. So although it's not as serious as knob and tube, what we are finding now with our team is that if a house has aluminum wiring, the insurance company wants to send an ESA inspector out there to provide a satisfactory report before they will guarantee insurance.
Yes.
You're seeing that, correct?
Yes. Aluminum wiring is something, usually the early 70s is when they
70s,
had, the price of copper went up, so they used aluminum. Aluminum wiring isn't necessarily a bad product. It's safe, but people have to understand you can't put aluminum wire, you can't mix it with copper without doing certain things. So up until recently, most insurance companies, if you had aluminum wiring in your home, all they would require is a licensed electrician to come in, take a look at the system, and on company letterhead, just provide a letter saying that the system was safe. We are starting to see a lot of companies are starting to require what we call an ESA certificate, Electrical Safety Authority, That's a little bit more complicated, a little bit more expensive, a little more bureaucracy involved. But again, that's why they need a good real estate agent to point those things out before they sign on the dotted line.
No kidding. Some other things of note: 60 amp service, not so liked.
Not
anymore.
so liked. No,
we don't see it that often. It's older homes that will come across 60 amp service. You want at least 100 amp service. Oil tanks. We're not coming across that as much anymore, but it's still around.
I think oil tanks are really they're very rare in this area now.
Yeah.
But they are around. You can buy a home and not know that there's an oil tank in there, or not think it's a big deal. There's a huge liability exposure if that oil tank leaks.
Yes.
So most insurance companies, if that oil tank is over 10 or 15 years old, it's a deal breaker. You need to either have it replaced or inspected.
Wood burning fireplaces. Again, they might request a wet inspection.
Yes, like a wood burning fireplace, an open fireplace is not
stove,
an
I should
issue.
say, an oven.
Yeah,
Stove, yeah.
Like if you have a stove that slows down the burn rate, then a lot of times they'll want to have a wet inspection.
Yeah.
And I think those are usually about $150, $200.
Yep.
But again, the inspection is the first step. It's what do I have to do with this stove afterwards? I mean, I've seen stoves in people's garages where you've got a wood stove and 6 inches away there's a shelf with spray cans on it, spray paint cans. Wood stoves are great if you know how to use them.
Yeah.
And you take care of them.
Hire a professional, folks.
There you go.
Hire a professional. Okay, so before we keep going, we're going to let's do our weekly home staging segment. So, and with that is our Dan Gemus real estate team's home stager, Monica Bunde. Hey, Monica, how are you today?
Great, Dan. How are you?
Very good, thank you. We have our weekly tip of home staging. I can never get this. Our weekly home staging tip.
Call it whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
I'll just sit here and talk.
Perfect. What do we have
this week? We're going to talk about which home improvements actually pay off.
Yes.
So I just have 4, but there's probably more than that. But some really big ones that pay off if you do even anything to it. Kitchen and bathrooms.
Yep.
Those are main things. Number 1 for women. We love our kitchen. We want a great bathroom. So even if it's just painting. Number 1 is great. Changing out a countertop. Adding a backsplash. Changing out your hardware. Little tips. Little home improvements like that go a long way. In the bathroom, when you're trying to sell your home, put a fresh shower curtain on, clean the bathtub. That's major. That's the first thing, because people don't want to see a dirty bathtub. It's horrible. It's the first thing you look at, and then you think, oh my gosh, what else is not right, in the house? So especially when you're selling the house, don't give people a reason to think what else is up. So
it adds up.
Yeah, it adds up. So that's a major home improvements. Do something to your kitchen and to your bathroom just to freshen them up.
Great.
And normal home maintenance. So small fix-ups. Keep up with your home. Keep your home moving forward. We sometimes go into homes that have literally not been touched in 20 years.
Yep.
You can't do that, because do you know how much it's going to cost you at the end to bring that home up to date every year?
Something as simple as loose doorknobs, loose closet doors, or closet doors that are off the hinges.
Yeah, stuff like that. We see that all the time. Sometimes you don't have to. Some people are like, oh, I'm going to put $15,000 into a new kitchen, and then their roof is leaking or the shingles haven't been changed in 30 years. You need to not touch your kitchen.
That'd be a problem.
Yeah, I know it would be. Yeah, don't touch your kitchen.
Yeah.
You know what? Work on that home maintenance. That roof needs to be done before that kitchen, needs to be changed out. So curb appeal. Always convey a sense of welcome, convey a sense of hominess. So that is your first step of getting, a potential buyer into your home. So always have a nice looking outside. Curb appeal. It's major. That has to be maintained all the time, not just in the summertime, in the wintertime too. Dead branches, everything. Just pick them up. You never know who's going to come and take a peek at it. More space. So a home improvement that adds value to your home is adding more space.
Yes.
So, but sensible space. So a 4-season room, something that you can use all year long. Maybe adding on if it's 2-bedroom home, if you have space in the back, add on a 3rd bedroom. Everybody loves 3 bedrooms. So things like that. Keep your home moving forward until you're ready to sell it.
And oftentimes you have an unfinished basement that you can
Yeah,
finish.
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
And get some more space down
Yep.
there. which-
Put an extra wall in there, add on another bathroom, add on an office in the basement, something like that, just to get some extra space.
All
So
great
that's
tips.
always good.
All great
Yep.
tips. Thanks, Monica, as always.
You're welcome.
That's Monica Bunde, the home stager for the Dan Gemus team. Keep it tuned right here to the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show. Lots more to come right after this.
Welcome back to the show. A few minutes left here with Chris Gibb of Gibb Insurance Brokers. Now, Chris, let's start talking. Let's keep a bit on the claims topic. So, when a claim is made, we've talked about a restoration company comes out. The insurance company often recommends which restoration company to use.
Yes.
Do you have to use that restoration company?
No, you can, as a consumer, you can use whoever you want to do the work.
Okay.
As long as that person or that business will do it for the same price as the insurance company's estimate.
Okay.
So if it's a $10,000 repair job, as long as your guy does it,
$20,000.
exactly, they're not going to pay more. I mean, if you do it yourself, they will knock around 25% off, simply because if you're doing it yourself, you're not paying for compensation. You're not paying, you don't have all the business expenses that a regular contractor would have. And I will say sometimes it is better to find your own person to do those repairs, especially when you have a bunch of claims in an area, you know, and when we had our latest one, or our really bad one about 5 years ago in Amherstburg, 500 homes flooded.
Yeah.
So your disaster companies, there's only so many guys out there, even though they bring people down from Toronto and London to help out. So sometimes you can be waiting a while to get your home back in shape, simply because there's only so many drywallers, there's only so many flooring guys. So if you have your own person, sometimes it can be more expedient just to bring them in.
So at that point, and we ended up doing that ourselves. So we get the quotes from the insurance company, the restoration companies.
Yep.
And at that point, they made us an offer. We'll pay you off. Here you go. Here's the number if you want us to go away and
That's
be
it.
done with.
That's it.
We'll write you a check for this amount.
That's right.
Does that work a specific way, or is it just literally that?
Generally, if you're going to hire a contractor, a licensed, a business person to do the work for you, that's what they do. The insurance company will say, our contractor says it's going to be $12,000. Does your guy agree to do it for that much? Yes. Okay. They'll write a check in the name of Dan Gemus and Joe Smith Contracting. They issue you the check, and you get Joe Smith to do the work.
What happens if throughout the process you don't agree with the quotes coming back, or the work that's being suggested, or you don't agree with something? Is there a process that you can kind of?
Well, generally, most insurance companies are pretty open to work with you.
Okay.
Maybe some people are lying in bed right now listening to this and saying, no, that's not true. It is. They're generally they're willing to work with you. Again, these disaster companies, they've done this thousands of times, and they know that, if you have 6 inches of water in your basement, well, they don't have to replace all the drywall. They cut up 24 inches.
Yep.
They come in with dehumidifiers and fans, and they dry it. So they're generally very fair, and most of the time, the cost for your own contractor is well within line with what the disaster companies are charging the insurance companies.
On our policies, we often see a line about personal liability. Can you tell us about that? How does that work?
Okay. That's a very good question, Dan. Your liability insurance on your home insurance policy, basically the wording is generally your liability covers your personal actions anywhere in the world. So when you have liability on your home insurance, it covers not only the property. So if a kid gets bit by your dog, a friend falls off the porch, somebody falls down the stairs at a party, they can sue you. That's your premises liability. But one thing most people don't realize is you also have your personal liability. And I had a situation years ago where a client bumped into someone in the mall, knocked them down, and when the fellow fell, he broke his wrist.
Wow.
And this fellow was a plumber.
Ooh.
So he was out of work for, I think, 6 or 8 weeks. And my client's liability coverage from their home insurance policy
Took care of it.
took care of that cost. So it's a very complex product. And generally, most people get the $1 million liability. Most companies will charge you $10, $20 to go with $2 million. Which is
I had no
twice
idea
as
that's how
good.
that worked.
That's
That's
how it
pretty
works.
cool.
It's pretty comprehensive.
I've got about 40 more questions, and we're out of time. So we're gonna have to get you back in the studio. It's
Well, you know, why not? I've got a face for radio, so I'll
that's
come
what
back
I've always-
anytime.
That's what I've always said, and look where I ended up. Billboards all over the place. It kills me. Drive by all the time. Okay, so listen, thank you again. I appreciate everybody listening. And Chris, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do so?
The best way is call the office, 736-8228. We're out in beautiful Amherstburg, but
You service everything.
We service the province of Ontario. These days with internet and email, you can get this stuff taken care of. And if you're someone who wants to sit and do things face to face, that's what we're there for.
Chris is great for that, and I can vouch what you're hearing on the radio today. That is the true Chris, and he's awesome to sit down with and get to know. So I look forward to working with you for many, many years to come, Chris.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. As long as you don't get me up at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning too often.
No promises.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next Sunday.